All right, Danielle. Well, here we are in week five of the WNBA season, and big news for the Indiana Fevers. CC is back.
Yes, thank God.
Yeah, two games this week. One was the no CC experience for the Fever, and the worst game they've had, I think, without her. And then just an incredibly fun CC experience yesterday. So
Yeah,
maybe we
for
can start with the Dream game first.
yeah, that was rough. It was not fun to watch. And yeah, it was the worst loss they had all season. I think prior to that, their worst loss was maybe 6 points to Washington. They had lost by just like one possession in all their other losses. So this was a actual blowout. So it was rough to watch. They just couldn't get anything going offensively.
Yeah. I mean, my big takeaway from that game was Alicia Gray. I was
Yeah.
very impressed with her. Um, you and I had talked some earlier about what was Atlanta doing with their roster construction, and it didn't make sense with having Griner and Jones, and then saying we're going to be a three-point shooting team.
Yeah.
But boys, they've unlocked something with Alicia Gray this year.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. She has career numbers this year, in almost every category. So, it's been a good change for her to have the new system for sure.
Well, the other thing that I had noted during the game, and I think they said the coach was doing this intentionally. I know you mentioned that Jordan Canada is working her way back in, but Ryan Howard at point guard. What do you think of that experiment?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they've had a lot of success so far, so it's interesting. She has great size if she's going to be playing that position. And yeah, I mean, it's working for them so far, but I expect long term that they'll be hoping to slot Jordan Canada into that starting role.
Yeah, well, that would make more sense. But to me, I think the kind of this surprise has been Alicia Gray, and I think that's the difference maker and why they're better than I thought they would be this year. I did not expect Alicia Gray to be a 20-point scorer per game,
Yeah.
and you know
And
Ryan
shooting
Howard.
almost 50% from the field and
Yeah,
about 38 from three. So very, very great shooting numbers.
yeah, she's having a great offensive season, and she's a good defender.
Yeah.
And, I mean, obviously, Howard has a ton of potential for the Dream and hasn't really put it together, I don't think, to be as great as her potential could be.
Right.
But then in their next game, she tied the WNBA record for most threes made in a game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, if Howard can get her shooting down and Gray can keep this season going, I mean, they may have something cooking down there.
Yeah. They have definitely exceeded my expectations for the season. Yeah, and they are, I think, in a lot of ways, the worst matchup for Indiana. We talked before about how it's a bad matchup for Bonner just because the bigs are so big, but I think
Right.
for the whole team, it's a tough matchup because you got a couple of really big bigs, and Boston's biggest weakness, it feels like, is getting in foul trouble. So she kind of has to play a little tentative against Atlanta and their bigs. And then they have big athletic guards. And Indiana, that's kind of their biggest weakness as a team is defense at the guard position.
Yeah, so that game, probably enough said about it. It wasn't
Yeah,
fun to watch. It
no.
was painful if you're an Indiana Fever fan. But then we had the triumphant return of Caitlin.
Yeah, Caitlin is just crazy. She, yeah, can do things that no one else can do. And she, yeah, just lives up to the moment all the time, it feels like. Like you think back to the exhibition game at Iowa where they have like the logo, her name on the court where she hit some record-setting shot. Was it the all-time points or something like that? It's hard to keep up with, but where right before she was coming out, she knocks down a three at the logo and uh the distance with which she is taking and making these shots is just otherworldly. There's no one else who can do it. She had that three. three-pointers in a row, back to back to back in 38 seconds in the game. And I think the average range at least in the first half, the average distance was about 29 something feet, which is just crazy.
Yeah, I think for the game, she ended up having six threes, and it was
Six in the first half, seven total, I think.
seven total. Yeah. So it's in the first half, then it was six threes. It was 178 feet total. So
Yeah.
basically 30 foot per
Yeah.
shot. I mean, yeah. So that was amazing. And just she brings just something to the game that the women's side of the game just doesn't have. She can do things that nobody else can do with shooting from that distance.
Yeah.
I mean, Ionescu has better
Hmm.
range than maybe she's a second. I think Bonner and
Her or Bonner.
Ionescu, yeah, but maybe they're a couple feet behind the line. They're not easily just putting up logo threes. And Caitlin's she shoots logo threes with her natural shot mechanics.
Yeah.
She's not having to heave or do anything different. I mean, it's just a unique skill set that nobody else on the women's side of the game has, and it gets the crowd going also.
It does for sure. Yeah. That just gives you a lot of momentum, and you really don't feel like you're out of a game that Caitlin Clark is in. Kind of like the Pacers, really. Like if you have a player who can make shots like that, you're always going to be able to compete and come back in games.
Yeah, and that was a game of runs yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I don't know if I've ever seen a game with so many runs where, I mean, long runs. I made a couple of notes here, just watching it um, from the third quarter. I didn't even take any notes in the first half, but it was several runs in the first half. But
Yeah.
I believe the score was 53-50 at halftime. The Fever were
Mhm.
up, so this was not a defensive slugfest. This was a fun offensive game. And New York started with a 9-0 run.
Yeah.
Um, then Indiana followed that with a 19-0 run that eventually became a 25-3 run. And then New York went on a 14-2 run after that. And I
Yeah.
believe that was all just in the third quarter. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it was just incredible runs by both teams. You know, Ionescu ended up with even more points than Caitlin. As spectacular as Caitlin was, I think
Yeah.
Ionescu had the most points in the game.
Yep.
So just a lot of shooting, a lot of great shot making by both teams, and yeah, just a fun game to watch.
Yeah, definitely. Um, and we mentioned how Caitlin's ability to stretch the floor like that is unique. No one else can do it. It also, when you pair that with her passing ability, makes it almost impossible to guard. Because if she wasn't a passer and you can just guard her full court and try to get in, make it hard for her to get a shot off. Even that's pretty much impossible. You saw different people. New York went with Stewie guarding Caitlin a lot of the game. But when you have someone who demands that much defensive attention, who also is looking to pass the ball and get her teammates involved, that's really tough to defend.
Yeah, I think I read the ESPN write-up after the game, and I'm pretty sure Stewie did a pretty good job on her. I don't remember the
Yeah.
numbers, but I believe that she was the most effective defender on her. I mean,
Mhm.
Stewie's long. She's a smart basketball player, several inches taller, and her wingspan's just like
Yeah.
phenomenal. So, yeah, she did a good job. Caitlin
Yeah.
did there was that fun moment where Caitlin got
Yeah.
the three off over Stewie, a very deep three, and they were just joking going down the court.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. But one thing, Indiana, and let's be honest, we caught the Liberty at a good time.
Yeah.
Jones was out
Jonquil and
with,
Phoebus out. That makes it a lot easier to handle. They didn't get much from Marine Johannes. Sabally was pretty good filling in for Jones, but it's not the same.
yeah. But here's a stat. I don't know if you looked at this. We talked about this a little last week about Boston's production without Caitlin.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I didn't think to look. How did she do? Do you know? Yesterday, what were Aaliyah's numbers?
I don't know off the top of my head. Let's see if I can pull it up.
I've got it here. 4 for 10.
Okay.
Just Yeah, 10 points. It looks like two out of three
And
from the free throw line.
yeah, I watched the post-game interview, and Caitlin mentioned that they wanted to get Aaliyah more touches, but the way they were defending the pick and roll was they were really covering Aaliyah in that, and so they got a lot of threes. They set the Fever record for threes in a game at 17. So they just were taking what the defense was giving them, and New York was really focused on Aaliyah and not giving them those easy buckets. So, and Aaliyah is more than willing to pass out for three or set screens and is an unselfish player.
Yeah. We've mentioned this before, but great passer, probably the second best passer behind Alyssa Thomas for a big
Yeah.
in the WNBA. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just looking, I didn't even see the box score yet today. It's 17 for 35 shooting from three for
Yeah.
the Fever. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess New York's may want to rethink their strategy of,
Right. Twos are less than threes. So,
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a great
and
game.
that's Lexi hit three, Mitchell had three. Sydney Colson was two for three from three, so that's huge if they're going to get production from Sydney. Um, Cunningham was one for two, Dantas one for two, so really good overall effort.
But Bonner didn't play, right? Is that?
Bonner's out for personal reasons, so yeah, they didn't have Bonner. So not the same as missing Jonquel Jones and Leonie Febish, but
No.
wasn't a full squad for Indiana.
Yeah.
But really
But
impressive. Caitlin and Cunningham in their first games back just came out and played incredibly well. Cunningham was plus 31 in her minutes on the floor in 25 minutes. Um, Caitlin was only plus five, but she played a lot of the game. Although actually, that's interesting because they rested her pretty well, and I like the way they managed her minutes in that game. And they even went on some runs without her. So that was good to see and hope that continues, that they don't wear her down over the course of the remaining 30 odd regular season games.
it was very good to see. We're, yeah, hopefully they will continue to just be smart with how they rest her. I mean, I think I said yesterday while we were watching the game, 31 minutes of a Caitlin Clark at full energy is much better than 37 minutes of her tired. And
Right.
so I hope the coaching staff will recognize that. The NBA teams do that really well during the regular season. I mean, they just have set rotations. Guys come out at a specific time, basically no matter what, unless something super unusual is going on. They have their set minutes. They're going to get 36 minutes for their best players and, some other rotation, maybe 30, 28, but they're just very smart about how they do minutes in a
Right.
long season. And hopefully Indiana will look at the game today and say, oh, she only played 31 minutes, but got 32 points. So we don't have to play her 37 minutes to get the most out of her. So
Right.
I thought that was good. Um, which has anything else about the Fever specifically? I think one thing I wanted to touch on, you sent a message to me that shocked
Yeah.
me that Indiana is second in defensive rating.
Yeah. I mean, they've been in close games, so in some ways it's not surprising, but it definitely is a big turnaround. Last year, I think they were bottom of the league, or bottom four probably at least, in defense. So that is very encouraging to hear. You got to be at least in the top half of the league in defense to have a chance. So, yeah, that's a good sign for sure.
Well, I'll be honest, I was shocked when I
Yeah.
saw that stat that you sent me. I mean, Boston's a great defender. Lexi's a great defender. I think Howard's a good defender,
Hmm.
and I thought I've commented previously. I thought she's done a great job when they've played Chicago and Guardian
Yeah.
Angel Reese. I feel like Howard just matches up well and just defends her really well. But then I feel like Caitlin and Kelsey are not,
Yeah.
great defenders, and so
Yeah.
to see that they're doing that well with the defensive rating was a shock to me. But if they can remain a top five
Yeah.
defensive rating team, I mean,
Look out.
yeah, that'll be that bodes really well for them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Anything else specifically about the Fever?
I've just been keeping an eye on Howard. She's been playing really limited minutes and had significant stretches to start. the she was in the first half and to start the second half, and New York went on really big runs to start both halves. So she was got a pretty big negative plus minus for the game. And that doesn't always indicate how well you're playing, but it looks like she's having some back issues or something and playing limited minutes and not always being a positive plus minus out there.
Yeah, we could really use her to get fully healthy. I mean, I think they need her
Yeah.
for rebounding and defending other bigs. I mean, they're not huge. I mean, Howard's
Mm.
6'2". I think she plays bigger than she is. She does
She
a good
does.
job against defending bigger players. So they really need her to be healthy because otherwise
Yeah,
they're,
you have Sophie at the four, which they got away with John Quell out, but she got 5 fouls, so she's overmatched playing the four in a lot of games.
I mean, you're not going to be able to do that against Atlanta. You're not going to
Right.
be able to do that against a fully healthy Liberty team.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's just not going to happen. So, yeah, but fun game, fun to have
Yeah.
Caitlin back. Looking forward to the next couple weeks here. And one thing we mentioned was the Commissioner's Cup,
Yep.
which is kind of confusing to follow and figure out who's in and who's out. But right now, where are we standing with the Commissioner's Cup?
Yeah, we thought at the beginning of the season it was going to be Minnesota, New York, easy. Um, but as of today, New York probably won't make it, even if they beat Atlanta. If Indiana wins, Indiana will be in. They just have to beat Washington, I think, unless it's Connecticut. Either Washington or Connecticut, which I think it's Washington. Should be a very winnable game for them with Caitlin back. Um, or maybe it is
It's
Connecticut.
Connecticut. It looks like,
I think it is
yeah, I think
Connecticut.
it's
Yeah.
Connecticut.
Okay. Yeah. They beat Washington without Caitlin. And then New York needs to beat Atlanta. Atlanta killed Washington today. So, and they beat Indiana. So if Atlanta wins out, Atlanta will be in the Commissioner Cup game. On the other side, the Valkyries helped Minnesota out after they lost to Seattle. So it's Minnesota right now on the other side if they win out.
And when is that game? The Commissioner's Cup championship game?
It's maybe, I think it's the end of June. The games end this week, are the last Commissioner Cup games. And then, yeah, I think it's in maybe another week or two.
Yeah, and then we're going to be in Indianapolis on July 5th for the game against the Sparks.
Yeah, should be
So
fun.
that should be fun. Get our first Caitlin Clark game with the Fever
Yeah,
in person.
yeah. And that should be a win just based on how things have been going for the Sparks so far.
Yeah, should be. All right. So right now, the way things stand, it'd be Indiana and Minnesota, which is a little bit surprising.
Well,
I mean,
actually, Atlanta, Minnesota, because Atlanta
oh,
won today.
assuming, yeah, I'm
But
assuming New
we're
York's going
hoping
to
that
beat
New York can
Atlanta.
beat it. But
Yeah,
that's a tall order for New York with if John Quell isn't back.
that's true. Yeah, yeah. I was making an assumption that New York's going to win that game, but yeah, if John Quell's not back, you're right. That's a good point. Then it would be Atlanta. If Atlanta beats New York, it'll be Atlanta and looks like
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, for some other kind of news and notes around the league, Paige Bueckers came
Yeah.
back, both Bueckers and Clark in the first game back from being out for a while, had
Yeah.
great
30-point
games this
games.
week.
Yeah. Yeah. Paige looked really good. She looked comfortable. She was getting to her spots, pulling up, very efficient. And she just looks like she's the best player out there for Dallas by far. But nice to see her have a good game.
It was great. I think we need to maybe in the next week or two have maybe a trade deadline discussion and talk about trade value of different players.
Yeah.
But, Enrique's just had a bad season,
It's
and
been
I
rough.
feel like Dallas needs to try to trade her and get some value. To maybe there's some team if Enrique's shooting numbers are really bad right now, but if she can kind of get hot and maybe there's a team that needs some help at the guard who's going to be a playoff contender, maybe they can trade Enrique because she just doesn't fit the timeline for what they need to do.
No.
Dallas needs to look at. I mean, they're going to be pretty solidly in good condition position to get Betts or Fudd with the
Yeah.
number one draft choice in 2026, and then they're going to be, probably in good position to maybe get the with the 2 year record situation,
Yeah.
potentially get the number one pick in 2027 as well. And we've seen that historically, you've got to have multiple number one picks to win a championship in the WNBA.
Yeah.
And so I think whether it's by trade, like New York, or free agency, they've got Ionescu and Stewie.
Yeah.
And Las Vegas went the route of three straight number one draft choices to get their two championships. And I mean, now the Fever got Boston and Clark.
Yeah.
Now, if Dallas can get Paige and one or two more, they're going to be having a strong young core for the
Yeah.
future.
But
But right
yeah,
now, they're the
not,
worst team in the league.
yeah, and they won't be competitive for probably 2 or 3 years still.
Yeah.
So they should be just making it through these um, rough games where they just don't have the talent to compete, but have a young, if you have Paige Bueckers, you have to feel pretty good about the future. Just got to get the right pieces around her.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in other news, we talked last week about Sloot, that she was injured and looked like it was going to be season ending, but we didn't know for sure. But now, since our last podcast, we learned that, yeah, she's out for the season.
Yeah, I feel really bad for her. She was coming back to her original franchise where she was drafted to and played most of her career. And um, yeah, it's tough for her, tough for the team. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in other news around the league, what is up with the Valkyries?
Yeah, they have exceeded, I think, everyone's expectations, maybe not their own, because they did. I heard them talk before the season started, and they said we want to be competitive. We're not looking to tank. Yeah, we're good. We want to compete right away. We want to make the playoffs. The owners have said they want a championship in 5 years. So they're out here and they've beat some good teams. They killed Vegas. They just beat Seattle. They're, I don't know if they're at 500 right now. We're really close to it. But yeah, they've far exceeded expectations for an expansion team that, in theory, is just full of seventh best players who are having to do much more than they're used to having to do.
Yeah, well, they clearly didn't take the what you would expect a typical expansion team tanking route. They brought in a lot of international players with professional experience,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean they're doing much better than we thought.
Yeah.
And
And you had
so,
made the point that in a year where everyone's going to be a free agent next year, maybe you don't need to tank to get top talent. They have a great facility, they have good ownership. They're in Golden State, by the Warriors. So there's a lot going for them. They have, yeah, a good coach that is well liked by players, it seems. So maybe they can just attract top talent to put around those kind of seventh, sixth best players that is making up their team now.
yeah, they seem to be doing something right. And surprisingly, they've had the second toughest strength of schedule so far, and still have managed a 500 record. So, I mean, that's a big shocker.
Yeah.
Then on the other end of the spectrum, the big shocker for us has been Las Vegas. What is
Yeah.
going on with the Aces?
Yeah, they have not looked good. It's hard to say. It is probably a little bit of a lot of things. I think we've talked about the Kia Stokes issue that they're basically playing 4-on-5 on offense. And even really with Jules shooting woes, sometimes it's 3-on-5. And they also had a lot of turnover in the coaching staff. Their two main assistant coaches left for head coaching jobs. And we were talking about, is Natalie actually the best coach out of those Vegas coaches? Because Vegas has not looked good at all. And we've assumed that Becky's the best coach in the W, but is it actually Natalie? Time will tell,
Yeah,
I guess.
our hot take for the week is
Yeah.
isn't it's
Natalie's the best
Natalie,
coach in the W.
right? But yeah, I
Um,
mean, they're
yeah.
doing something right, and Las Vegas has just struggled. Whether it's
Yeah.
like you said, I mean, they've had the transition on the coaching staff as well, and the change with Kelsey Plum leaving and
Yeah.
Jewel Lloyd coming in. And I don't know if, it seems like that could have gone by 10 or so games in, that maybe they'd be figuring some things out, but they've just are not gelling. Asia's out now, I think, on a
Yeah.
concussion protocol. But there's just something not right with them. And other teams around the league have been getting better,
Right.
and they have not shored up. The one to us, we like you said, we've talked about this, but they need a better four next
Yeah.
to Asia. It seems like somebody who can contribute. They've got great guards. I mean, Chelsea Gray and Jackie Young, or I don't know if
Yeah, they
anybody
are.
has a better backcourt.
It's hard to argue. You can say Indiana maybe, but the defensive side brings them down a peg for sure. Because Jackie is such a good defender. But yeah, it doesn't feel like it's the backcourt's fault. Part of it too is they lost a lot of depth and like role players in the offseason. Alicia Clark left, Tiffany Hayes left, Kate Martin got taken in the expansion draft. So they've been a team that's been heavily reliant on their core four, and they downgraded the core four. Apparently, Kelsey seems like she was um, a better player than Jewel has been so far. It seemed like a roughly even match, but it has not been so far. Um, and then they lost a lot of the supporting players that they did have. So, yeah, it's not been good for Vegas. I think they're, what did I say, ninth in offensive. They're seventh in offensive rating and ninth in defensive rating right now, which is shocking. And it's like, I think they'll make the playoffs, but it'll be like a seven. I would be surprised if they made it higher than six. Yeah.
Yeah, well, right now they've playoffs started today. They'd be the 5 seed, and they'd be
Okay.
playing Phoenix then, in the first round, which Phoenix has done really well considering that Copper hasn't played yet
Yeah.
this
She's
season.
supposed to come back today. So that'll be interesting to see what it looks like with the big three together. But the role players that they brought in have done a great job. They brought in some pieces that have a lot of good international experience, who haven't been in the W necessarily, but they've also exceeded my expectations for them this season.
Yeah, 100%. I watched a little bit of their game the other day, and I guess it was the Dallas game where
Yep.
Paige went off for 35, and um, Lexi held. I was very
Yeah.
impressed by her, and don't remember her from DePaul. I think they said.
Yeah.
I'd
I don't
really,
remember her either, really,
I
but
mean, we watch a lot of Big East games.
yeah.
I don't. We watch every UConn game, so like I don't remember Lexi held.
It must have been the Anissa Morrow era, though, right? Because I think she's not like a 22-year-old rookie. I think she's played overseas a couple years.
Okay,
It's
well,
been a little while, at
yeah,
least.
that would explain it perhaps. But yeah, I was very impressed with her. She
Yeah.
looked very
And then you
good.
got
Yeah,
Catherine Westbeld, who has been out of college for a long time, but playing overseas, starting and hitting threes and just filling her role really well.
yeah,
And then Akoa Makani has looked really good to me also.
yeah. Well, it seems like you kind of have several things going on against the Aces right now. One is losing coaching staff, losing some players where you just lost some continuity. I mean, even if Jewel Lloyd and Kelsey Plum are equal talent-wise, there's just a loss of continuity there.
Yep.
But then on the other side, you've kind of got the Connecticut diaspora
Yeah.
going out and making other teams better.
Yeah.
Jones has made Atlanta
Atlanta,
better. You've got Thomas making Phoenix better now that she's back.
Bonner.
Bonner leaving. I mean, there's just been other teams have gotten better. While
Yeah.
Vegas, is
Has gotten
actually
worse.
they've
Yeah.
gotten worse, and they're even if, like I said, maybe their core four is equal talent wise, but their continuity is clearly lacking. They're not
Yeah.
playing as well, and other teams have gotten better, and
Yep.
so. It's going to be really interesting to see. There's still 3 quarters of the season to go, so they could certainly turn it around. Asia's still, one of the top players in the league. You and I kind of feel like Nafisa may have passed her, but she's
Yeah.
going to be, probably first or second on most people's lists of best player in the league.
Yep.
So in basketball, when you've got the best player on the court, you've always got a chance to win, I think.
Yeah. And
So
she's great at both sides. She's a great defender. She's unstoppable on offense. So
yeah, so maybe this year Nafisa wins the MVP and Asia will be Defensive Player of the Year.
there you
And
go.
so
That seems fair. Yeah, Nafisa, I think, has passed Asia. Her ability to stretch the floor, I think, puts her above Asia, and she is a great defender. Gets contributes in a lot of ways, but she's probably not as prolific of a shot blocker as Asia, but just getting jump balls, getting deflections, little things like that that add up over the course of a game.
and the best hands in the game. You know,
Period.
I've been saying that since her UConn days
Yep.
that a highly underrated skill is having good hands for a basketball player. And Nafisa's great. She catches everything.
Yep.
And yeah, we love Nafisa. Happy to see
Yeah.
her having a great season and
Yep.
hope that that'll continue. She deserves it and hope she'll get the MVP this year.
Yeah, I hope so. Top five footwork too, probably.
Yeah, just she's fantastic. So hopefully she will win MVP, and I
Yeah.
hope that they can, I kind of hope that they'll get the championship this year because they were robbed last year.
Yeah, I hope so too. Indiana can get it next year maybe, but it'd be nice to see Nafisa win one. Yeah, and it's fun too because Minnesota has just built a really good team around Nafisa. Asia's over there playing with three other Olympians,
Right.
and Nafisa's the lone Olympian for Minnesota, but they've just built a good team and put all the pieces you need around her. And they play hard, they play team basketball. They're just an easy team to root for.
Absolutely. All right. So for our next segment, what were they thinking?
Yeah.
What do you got this week for what were they thinking?
So Dallas made a trade. They took Lee Yaroo, was at Seattle, and she had requested a trade, basically just citing playing time. She's not getting a lot of minutes over there, and she's from China, and it sounds like there's some national pressure on her to get playing time because she's missing national team obligations and um, so yeah, she said that it was nothing against the team, but just needed more playing time. So they trade her to Dallas, who cuts Charles, who hadn't really been playing or contributing, to make space for her. And Dallas sends two future picks, 2026 and 2027. One is a second round pick, one is a third round pick. But I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. If you're Dallas, you have the worst record in the league. Keeping the worst record in the league is good long term. To get both for this year to get a top lottery pick, and then for next year, you're probably going to be a little better if you can get a good pick, but to still have that cumulative 2-year record for the 26 after the 26th season. And then they already have a lot of bigs. They have Tiara McCowan, they have Melissa Smith, they have Maisha Hines Allen. So is she going to get minutes? Who's she taking minutes from? Um, yeah, I don't get it.
Doesn't make sense to me either. I mean,
Giving up
maybe,
assets also, because if you're Dallas, I think you want assets and you want youth, and kind of giving up both here.
yeah, we have a plan for Dallas's future, and they're not listening to us at all
Right.
here. They need to tank, but maybe it's just, I don't know. McCowan's going to be out now for Euro Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, they do kind of have a hole at the center. They're pretty small without
Yeah.
McCowan, and maybe if they rotate those two, maybe they get 20 minutes each out of those two at the five.
Yeah. Or maybe
I mean,
Melissa Smith loses some minutes, which I wouldn't
that
mind.
yeah, but that's going to hurt their tanking cause if Nalissa Smith loses minutes. So I'm not
It's
sure if
true.
that's
It's
smart
true.
or not. But
Yeah.
yeah, well, for me, this is something we've talked about with Ari McDonald, but the hardship rule. What in the world is the WNBA thinking, having this rule that Indiana kind of uncovered a gem, somebody who fits really well with what they like to do, hasn't latched on with a team, but all of a sudden gets an opportunity, is a great fit with Indiana, performed really well,
Yeah.
and now they can't re-sign her. They can't just cut somebody and keep her, even though she's under contract. What kind of a rule is that?
Yeah, it makes no sense. It's penalizing a team that had to make a hardship contract. So I don't get it. And it hurts the player too, because if they find a good fit, why would they not want to stay there? So it's not good for the players. Yeah, I don't see the benefit. It's interesting because a couple of teams have picked up some players in the last couple days since they had to release her. Um, and Aerie is not one of them. So I'm wondering if they have an agreement with her that as soon as they can fit her under the cap space that they're gonna get her back. But um, yeah, it's doesn't seem to benefit anyone.
All right, so what if the Indiana Fever general manager called you tomorrow and said, Danielle, what would you do? Ari McDonald's coming. The 10-day period is going to end in the next week here. We want
Yeah.
to get her back. What should we
Mhm.
do? What- We have to cut somebody.
Yeah.
Can they do
I
that? First of all, can
think
they
it
do
ha
that? And if so, what would your advice be to the Indiana general manager?
it would have to be someone on an unprotected contract. And I can't remember off the top of my head who all is unprotected, but I do think Bree Turner is one of them. Um, I think Colson is one as well. I think Cunningham is one, and then I think Boston and Clark are also unprotected, but obviously you're not doing that. Yeah, I that's tough. I don't know the exact day because Aries hardship contract ate into their salary cap, which also doesn't make any sense. A hardship contract should be in a separate situation. So I don't know what their exact day is where they could pick her up for the rest of the season. If it's 1 or 2 weeks, I think I would wait it out and hope to get her after a week or two. If you're looking at a month or more, they're not playing Turner. So I don't know. I don't know if they have plans for her. I don't know if she's dealing with an injury that we don't know about. I don't know what's going on, but from the outside, I don't think Turner is really helping you out that much, and Ari helped you a lot. And hopefully you're not going to play Clark 37 minutes a game. So I would be willing to waive Turner to sign Ari personally.
I think so too. The only risk seems to be Howard's back, and we don't know what's going on with that. But yeah,
And
that
perhaps team togetherness or whatever. If you know Turner's an important part of the team on the bench or in the locker room, and you waive someone, that could potentially be a little disruptive. But you also have Timpson, who's kind of the same position as Turner and hopefully a part of the young core going forward. So I'd rather Timpson than Turner get minutes.
yes, I think that's the right answer to the general manager. So um, then the last thing maybe we can touch on quickly is kind of a big week for Indiana basketball. And we got
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark, but then you got the Pacers, and then you have the big article on ESPN about Caitlin and Tyrese Halliburton's friendship, which was a lot of fun
Yeah,
to
and
read.
I think we screenshotted the paragraph where it says they both want to spend the rest of their careers at those organizations and hoping that happens because that's fun basketball.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're IU fans and Connecticut fans on the women's side, so Caitlin wasn't our favorite player in college because
Yeah, she
she
opposed both teams.
she opposed both teams, and even Tyrese Halliburton said he wasn't cheering for her in college, and now
Right.
they're best buds. So we're in good company there. But I was thinking about it a little bit today, and because she's from Iowa, she can probably appreciate Indiana more than maybe like if somebody grew up in a big city,
Yeah.
and or like probably Juju Watkins wouldn't want to spend her career in, somewhere like
Yeah.
Indiana. She'd probably
She's a
rather go to
Midwest girl though. Yeah.
exactly, is a perfect fit for Indiana. She's a Midwest girl. Indiana's the most Midwest team. I mean, Chicago's a Midwest city, but it's a big city, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of professional sports and things going on in Chicago and Indiana Fever. Indiana's a basketball state.
Yeah.
We love the game of basketball, and it was just fun to see that she and Tyrese Halliburton have really bought into the culture of Indiana and love being there. And it would be great if those two do stay the rest of their lives, their careers with the Fever and the Pacers. I think, you know,
That would be
it
a lot
would
of fun basketball. We'll take it for sure.
a lot of fun basketball. Two point guards are so important in the game of
Yeah.
basketball, and to have, two young, exciting point guards leading those teams. Just, things are looking good for professional basketball in Indianapolis right now.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of fun.
Yeah. So, go Fever and go Pacers.
Yeah.
Too bad they didn't pull that game four out. They would have been sitting in the driver's seat. But,
Yeah, you can't bet against them, but it is too bad that they lost that home court advantage.
I think one thing that seems to be true is because the NBA always plays 7 game series, the best team almost always wins. I
Yeah.
do think OKC is better than Indiana. Indiana's been playing great. Now they've been playing as well. They're competing with OKC. They had the game two is a bit of a blowout, but the other 3 games have all been close. So
Yeah.
Indiana's been playing as well, but I think OKC is a more talented team overall. So it wouldn't shock me. It would be a little disappointing, but um, you know, Indiana's quickly moving up. Uh, Even though I'm from Indiana, never been a big Pacers fan because I've always been more of a college basketball fan than an NBA fan. So they're from Indiana, so I'm happy if they win, but don't lose any sleep at all if they lose. But with Tyrese Halliburton there, um, kind of my NBA fandom has always been around. I like an individual player or players and kind of like those teams. So in the 70s for me, when I was younger and started following basketball, I liked Dr. J a lot. So I was a Sixers fan. Then when Larry Bird made it to the NBA, I was cheering for Boston just because I loved the way Larry Bird played. Then recent history, it's been Steph and Clay for the Warriors. Love the way the Warriors play basketball. So just, it's kind of been my fandom isn't necessarily for any team, but the way a team plays or a certain player and a style of play. So the way the Pacers play is fun and really like Halliburton a lot. So I don't know. Clay's gone from the Warriors now. Maybe the Pacers will be a team I can follow and enjoy following going forward. So
Yeah. They play a fun style of basketball and pretty similar to the Fever, which is also fun. And it's team oriented, good shooting, uh, and that's what Indiana people like. So
and it's just fun to see them supporting each other, right?
yeah,
That you know the
they're at each other's games. The Pacers were undefeated in games Caitlin attended until this last one, but she left
she
early,
left
so
early. They were probably leading when she left, but I
probably.
think uh, I think at game three, Lexi and Caitlin and Sophie were all three at the game.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just fun to see both of those teams supporting each other and, the culture of Indiana basketball, seeing
And
two
fun.
good
That
teams.
article, that article even mentioned that Tyrese was going before Caitlin came to the Fever. He was going to Fever games,
Yeah,
and they were bad before Caitlin got there. It was rough. The only thing people cheered for was when Grace Berger got into the games in 2023 because she's an Indiana girl. But yeah, so that's fun. That he's not just a bandwagoner.
right, right. Yeah. So a lot of fun, good times for professional basketball in Indiana right now. So hopefully the Pacers can steal game five on the road. And,
Yeah,
I think that's what they're going to need to do. So hopefully that'll happen. And then, yeah, we're coming up with 2 games this week for the Fever. So we got the Connecticut game, which will determine whether they
potentially
got a
Kevin.
chance at the Commissioner's Cup or not, and then they play the Valkyries. So
Yeah.
that should be interesting on Thursday. So any thoughts on those games?
Connecticut, they should be able to win that. Connecticut's struggling this year. They really only have two like starting caliber players and Tina Charles and Marina Mabrey. So that's not enough to carry a team. And fairly easy to defend. Not that either of those players are easy to defend at all, but you can get a little extra help when there's not as much talent around them. Um, Although Nelson Adota has been pretty good this year. But that should be a winnable game and important to win for the Commissioner Cup and just all overall record also. You really don't want to be outside of the top four this year. Um, And then the Valkyries, it's tough to say. You don't have a lot of film on those players, in those roles, so it'll be an interesting one. But I feel pretty good about the chances to beat them as well.
Yeah, well, hopefully it'll be 2 wins this week for the Fever and 2 wins for the Pacers this week.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
go
well, all
Indiana.
right. Go Indiana. And yeah, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there today. And we will be back next week to talk some more Indiana basketball.